Hey guys, it's Vanessa. Since I'm not too far from all of these places that we keep talking about in the disappearance of Suzanne Morphew, I decided to take a trip down there to see everything for myself. I just think it makes a huge difference and is a big advantage to go somewhere in person as opposed to seeing it online. I started at the Holiday Inn Express in Broomfield and then drove the almost 3-hour drive down to Salida. I do, after going down there, have some opinions and theories on this, but that's all they are, so please just take them as that. So when you pull up to the Holiday Express in Broomfield, there are visible cameras all over the building. You can't miss them. When you walk in the main doors, there's an indoor pool that's down the hallway and to the left, and unless you open the door to the pool, which I did, you can't smell the chlorine. I went into one of the rooms since someone online was saying that all of the rooms smelled really strongly like chlorine. I did not find that to be the case. And in fact, the room that I went into was being cleaned and it still didn't have a strong bleach smell. So why is that important? Well, if that's true, that Barry's room reeked like chlorine, which both Morgan and Jeff said, it could also be bleach. It would be something specific to his particular room and not something that's a characteristic of the entire hotel. I did notice that they had the same spray bottles that they showed online, those clear ones with the peroxide solution, on some of the tables in the main lobby, and I wondered if Barry didn't bring one of those into the room with him for whatever reason, and that was why Jeff and Morgan smelled that strong smell. I'm not really sure how important the hotel is, other than it's my personal theory and many others that this was just an alibi to be sure that he was seen on camera and to be a good 3 hours away when Suzanne was reported missing on Mother's Day. When you leave the hotel and you go across the interstate, which is Northwest Parkway, there is an unfinished brick retaining wall. So I just want to say this really quick because I'm going to go into what I found. I could be wrong, so I'm going to say that up front, but I really think this is the retaining wall, and I would assume this would be it because it's visible from the hotel and it is unfinished on one end. Morgan had stated in her interview that she waited for brick to arrive, I think it was on Monday, and it never did. So most of the retaining walls around here are just cement, and this one is stone, so it matches the description she was talking about. And I drove all around, looked all around. I did not see anything else that would match what they described that would be in the area or anything that would fit it at all. So I really do think that this is the retaining wall that they're referring to. If someone has specific information on the retaining wall and I'm incorrect, please let me know in comments. So Plunder has a video that came out yesterday that talks about whether or not the wall is owned by RTD, like the Daily Mail reported. So definitely check that out, and I'll put the link in the description below. So it goes along with what I'm saying. So basically, she was on the same plane of thinking as I was yesterday. So here's my thoughts on the retaining wall and what I found interesting. So like I said, you leave the hotel, you go across the interstate, and there's this large retaining wall that is unfinished on one end. The wall extends past these gates that mark the Red Tail Ridge Lift project. So I looked that up, and that is private property. So I'm going to explain why this is important. First things first, this retaining wall falls right outside of Broomfield city limits. It's not actually in Broomfield. It's technically in Louisville, which is in Boulder County. So I don't see how this would be a Broomfield RTD project because technically it is on the other side of the line of Broomfield. This falls in line with what the YouTuber Jules, I believe it was, said yesterday in her video, that she had contacted RTD and they did not have any projects going on at that time with any retaining walls, which would make sense because this isn't even technically Broomfield. Secondly, this wall sits on land that is part of a 400-acre huge development project. The med device company Medtronic is going to build a campus here, and here's where it really gets interesting, I thought. So as far as August of 2020, this project has not received the green light to even start construction. And regardless of all of that, with a project this huge, they aren't gonna hire Barry from Salida with 2 people for this job. I would assume they're going to have large construction companies that are bidding for this job, and it's certainly not an emergency that would need to be completed on Mother's Day. So why would Barry be up here working on a wall that sits on land that hasn't even been voted on to okay the beginning of construction? I'm sure investigators are aware of this information already, but I just thought it was interesting info for us online sleuthers. Bottom line, you guys, I don't think that there was any construction job. I personally feel that this was an alibi with witnesses and nothing more. If you put all of this together with the fact that he didn't have the right tools, that the brick never arrived, and that the information on the retaining wall isn't checking out in general, it just seems that his house of cards is starting to fall. Just another thing that's been on my mind, we know that Morgan said that this Broomfield retaining wall job was originally scheduled for late April, then it was moved to May 1st, and then finally it was moved to Mother's Day. It would be interesting to see if this camping trip that the girls went on was originally scheduled for late April and then ended up getting moved. By now, you guys have probably already read or listened to all the latest interviews with Jeff, Morgan, and Barry, and it just seems like there's a lot of slip-ups that are beginning to happen. I believe it was Tyson Draper that was told by Barry that he saw Suzanne on Sunday morning on Mother's Day around 5 a.m. before he left to Denver, but now we know that he stayed the night, Saturday night, overnight in the hotel in Broomfield. Oops. Just stuff like that he's slipping up on left and right. There's also the fact that Morgan says that when he told her to go home from the site on the waterfront property around 11 a.m., he said that he had to go see Suzanne and make the wife happy to go hiking and stuff. And then it turns out, and I've heard from more than one person, by the way, that he was out shopping and he was going around putting his cards on doors. So why lie about that? So just these little slip-ups. And that's what happens when you have a web of lies and you can't keep your story up. So it's also the reason, obviously, that he has tried not to speak much and have everything pre-recorded or very controlled when he does, because he's not stupid and he knows that the more he talks, the more it's likely he is going to slip up like he has and contradict himself. The 3-hour trip to Salida from Broomfield is pretty heavily traveled until you get fairly close to Salida. So in my opinion, it's not somewhere that you would want to get rid of anything without being seen. There was considerably less traffic in May due to the stay in place orders that we had here, but it still doesn't seem very likely to me that someone would feel comfortable doing anything incriminating along this drive. When I got down to Salida, I went to the house that's on the river where the FBI dug for multiple days. Quick disclaimer here, of course, all the pictures I took of everything were zooming in from public streets. No trespassing was done. And that's definitely an obstacle that I noticed when I was down there. There's a lot of land to look at and a lot of it is privately owned. So going back to Morgan's interview, she talks about how on Saturday, she was called to this location that was May 9th, and they were told to make the beach look like a beach and clean it up. It's a little hard to see from the road, but we've seen it online plenty of times. There's the spot behind the house that looks like it goes a little bit slightly farther out into the river than it should. I was told that it's interesting that it does seem that he built out farther than he should have, that might be farther than the property line. Why he would do that, I don't know. And why is it covered with rocks like that? Don't know that either. However, it's my understanding that they haven't dug there yet, so I'm hoping that that's an area that they are going to revisit. And of course, we heard from Morgan that morning on Saturday, May 9th, his demeanor was strange. He was acting very stressed out and that they were supposed to work all day, but she was sent home at 11 a.m. The whole thing, when you put it together, is just really strange. When you add his demeanor together with the fact that we can't get any kind of confirmation on when the last eyes-on spotting of Suzanne was, or voice-to-voice of her was. In my personal opinion, I think that whatever happened to her happened on Friday, May 8th. I also went to see the Longhorn neighborhood where Barry just bought 2 acres of land. This area is absolutely beautiful, and he has panoramic views of the mountains. There are some other ranches surrounding his property. It's a huge open space, and it's very isolated. I asked if it's possible if he could have accessed the property before he bought it, and I was told that yes, it's absolutely possible. So on this land, there are sod piles, spots where hay bales have been, and also spots that appear to have different colored dirt or freshly overturned dirt. I'm not saying anything, I am just making an observation, but I couldn't help but remember the Watts case when drones were flown over the field at Survey 319 when they were looking for Shanann and the girls. They were looking for spots that looked like they were recently disturbed, and then they found Shanann's grave. So, just my personal opinion, I think that flying drones over this area would be extremely beneficial, as it's just a huge plot of land, and there are definitely spots that I think would be worth looking at. And it's my understanding that they have not dug here either, which is interesting to me considering, just saying, it would be a smart move to buy the land if you had done something incriminating on it. But we know that there's this search that's coming up on September 24th, and that the Chaffee County Sheriff said that they will have CSI people available if anything is found. Hopefully they will be able to get more answers, or make some kind of progress, or at least find areas that are worth the CBI looking deeper into during that search. It was my understanding that Barry was off on a hunting trip while I was down in Salida that day. So I would think he'd be spending all of his spare time searching for Suzanne, but, to be fair, maybe he was out, looking for that mountain lion. So thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any differing information on that retaining wall, please let me know in comments. We are hoping and praying for Suzanne's family and friends to have some kind of closure soon on this. I can't imagine what this must be like for them, and we're also wishing them a very safe search on the 24th. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll be notified of upcoming videos on this case and other cases as well.